oil and contends that it has done so for Venezuela and Iran in the past. And this is certainly an escalation, a major move that is being made by the administration here in the region. Big question is, where do we go next? The president was asked about that and said this. Take a listen.
What happens to the oil on that ship?
Well, we keep it, I guess.
Where does it go? What port does it go to?
Well, you have to follow the tanker. You're a good newsman. Just follow the tanker.
It appears as though the country was not flying a proper flag, as the Maritime Administration says that they observed the proliferation and unacceptable trend of the unauthorized use of our flag by vessels that are not registered to our country. This is something that is typical that you see when it comes to oil ships and sanctions and trying to evade sanctions. Other countries, such as the Marshall Islands, are used in certain instances. But nevertheless, you have U.S. lawmakers on both sides of the aisle really unsure about where we go from here.
Seems to me a very dangerous escalation and the prelude to potential conflict.
We're going to see a war with troops in ground combat. But I'll tell you this, if you're a narco trafficker and you're thinking about getting on a speedboat that is filled with a bunch of cocaine, you're having second thoughts right now.
The White House has made clear no options are off the table with Venezuela. The ultimate goal is they would like to see Nicolas Maduro, the president of the country, out of office. Certainly a tense time here in the region. Kelly?
Yeah, and how far does the president take it? We will see. Robert, thank you. Sir, thank you very much for your time this morning. The Justice Department says this ship was moving sanctioned oil from Venezuela and Iran and fueling terrorist organizations worldwide. So what is the signal the U.S. is looking to send with this move? What are your thoughts there?
Well, two things. Number one, this was not only sanctioned oil, but this exact ship had been sanctioned in the past by the United States for carrying oil from Iran, the sales of which were going to the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps and Lebanese Hezbollah. As to what's next, I think they're going to take this ship, they're going to put it right next to the Russian yachts that have been seized. This is an asset now that has been seized and will be held by the United States until there's some sort of resolution with regards to Maduro and his narco-terrorist gangs.
Right. And what comes next there? We've seen this military buildup in this region. Venezuela calling this a blatant theft, an act of international piracy. The president also saying other things are happening. Does this escalation point you one way or another?
Yeah, I think what we're looking at, up to this point, I've been talking about the use of coercive diplomacy, the attempt by the United States to use not only economic sanctions, diplomacy, and military force to try to change the behavior of Maduro with a diplomacy lead. But I think the better comparison now, we've obviously ramped this up, and this is looking very, very similar to the maximum pressure campaign that we've had on Iran for years and years.
Yeah. And the president has said Maduro's days are numbered. Would moves like this successfully trigger a regime change? What do you see as that threshold? We know they've had conversations on the phone, that the terms Maduro has outlined, the president has said these are a no-go.
Well, again, that's where I was talking about this comprehensive diplomatic campaign. This is not all about ships and guns and American military personnel, but there are other things going on to include diplomacy. I think what we'd like to see, of course, is Maduro pick up on that offer to go to Qatar. But the fact remains is the United States will not directly involve itself in a regime change operation. But if the people of Venezuela understand and tell Maduro your time is up, that's probably the best opportunity for a legitimate and peaceful change and a move to free and fair elections.
What are your thoughts also on Congress's involvement in this and the potential for land strikes now? Where do you see both of those playing?
Well, on the latter issue of land strikes, I seriously doubt that the United States is contemplating land strikes at this point. Certainly not the type that were envisioned when Joe Biden recommended land strikes in 1979. With regards to there's going to be a lot of discussion. There have been some attempts to try to cut off money to the Defense Department, most recently by cutting Secretary of Defense Hegseth's travel budget. But I think although it is certain that Congress will be a noisy clangor for the next couple of weeks, I don't see them having either the authority or the willingness to try to interrupt with what the president is doing. Foreign policy has always been the province of the president. National security has always been the province of the president. And Congress puts itself in peril when it tries to interfere in the appropriate and proper actions of the president with regards to American national security.
Well, certainly a lot of fronts to monitor with these recent developments. Brigadier General Mark Kimmett, appreciate the breakdown, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Quite a development. The U.S. seizing this oil tanker off Venezuela's coast. You had those Navy helicopters swarming the ship. Armed U.S. forces rappelling onto the deck. This ship is reportedly capable of carrying up to 2 million barrels of oil. What goes into an operation like this to start?
Well, thanks for having me on this early morning. And there's a couple pieces of this. One, this vessel's been sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury since 2022 for supporting terrorist organizations' illicit funding mechanisms through the sale of oil. That's the IRGC, an Iranian organization, and Hezbollah, one of Iran's proxies in Lebanon. So the legal precedent for this is based on that finding, as well as the fact that as soon as you're found or suspected of flying a false flag, that raises the potential of you being involved in a lot of illegal activities, top of the list piracy, and makes your vessel prone to this type of action. So it's separate from any type of focused actions against the Maduro regime on its surface. On the operational side, what you're seeing in the video there, special forces. I think there was also some other agencies involved for the policing action. Coast Guard, for that purpose, is custom built for the law enforcement pieces of that. So special forces, small helicopters bringing the troops in to take control of the ship very quickly and to surprise if the crew has any inklings of trying to resist. And that thankfully was avoided in this case. And of course, there's going to be naval vessels very nearby or a Coast Guard cutter to basically keep in shadow and provide additional support if necessary. Not an easy thing to do. Takes a lot of training and specialized skills to do what you're seeing.
Right. And Robert really raised the question of the hour. What comes next in all of this? You had Venezuela calling this blatant theft an act of international piracy. What do you believe is the reasoning on the U.S.'s side? And the president saying at the same time other things are happening. Does this give you a sense into what may be on the horizon now?
Well, I think it underscores what's been a known reality in Venezuela for many, many years. It's a nexus of supporting terrorists. It's a nexus of supporting all kinds of illicit activities that are extremely harmful to American citizens, like the narcotics trafficking and cocaine, supporting to fentanyl through the cartels that Maduro regime relies on. And of course, providing home and sanctuary to some of our worst enemies, Russia, China, Iran, and allowing even their proxies to operate underneath the false pretenses of, I guess, officiality of a nation state. But in this case, I would draw a distinction. It's not clear to me that this is directly tied to going after the cartels, nor is it directly tied to going after Maduro regime. Is it an escalation and a global effort to go after the dark fleets that are supporting Russia's war in Ukraine, supporting the North Korean regime, and supporting regimes like Maduro? Absolutely. Fleet of dark ships that are involved in this, they number in the hundreds. So this is a problem that's long past due to take more serious.
Right, and this is a disruption of the oil trade all at the same time. So what is the signal the president is looking to send here?
Well, the only oil trade that it's disrupting is the illicit one. that Russia's using to fund its war in Ukraine. And of course, regimes like that in Pyongyang and North Korea use to continue to try to keep the lights on, the very few of them, in that communist regime in North Korea. So I don't think it's going to shock the system. What it will do is it'll probably drive demand for oil in official channels, which is not a bad thing, certainly not for American petroleum companies.
Yeah. Well, certainly fascinating video. Captain Brent Sadler, appreciate your expertise. So the fact that this tanker was allegedly involved in a network that previously transported Iranian-linked oil, what do you read into the significance there to start?
Well, I mean, I think the big question here is whether or not this is a prelude to a broader engagement against the trafficking of oil or the export of oil from Venezuela. There are a couple of reasons under international law that this was, let's say, a righteous judicial action. One, it's a stateless vessel. According to the Guyanese, it was not. It was flying their flag, but not registered in Guyana. And the second, of course, is that vessels involved in sanctions activities or terrorism are covered by civil forfeiture statutes as well. This is the first time this type of action has happened, although in 2020, there was an Iranian cargo of fuel that was intercepted and taken to an American port.
Right. And, you know, you also, when we talk about this pressure campaign that Robert was outlining, you recently had U.S. fighter jets over the Gulf of Venezuela in what appeared to be the closest encounter to the country's airspace since the start of this entire campaign. The president saying, quote unquote, other things are happening. Does this give you a sense of what may be coming next here? That's the million-dollar question. Are we looking at land strikes? What do you believe?
I mean, I believe land strikes are certainly on the table at this point in time. What are the next things that can be done that are part of a psychological campaign against the Maduro regime? Well, this opens up a new avenue because before it was focused on drug trafficking and those types of related activities, and now it's moving into the economic realm. So I think it remains to be seen whether or not the president will focus in this particular area. Or if he'll move towards strikes directly against drug infrastructure on the ground. That I would assume is among the options he has.
Yeah, and keeping any potential next moves very close to the vest, but really not taking anything off the table. The president has said Maduro's days are numbered. Would moves like this successfully trigger a regime change? Where is that threshold? What do you believe would move the dial if that is the goal, the stated goal here?
I mean, I believe the objective is to have somebody within the regime act against Maduro. So a couple things have to happen. One, they have to recognize that life would be better without Maduro in power than with him. So laying out, for instance, what a post-Maduro world would look like, I think is necessary. The second, whether or not Maduro has the income to continue to support the people around him that keep him in power. And he does that by giving them money from PDVSA, the state-owned oil company. So if you dry up oil resources, or by allowing them to traffic in gold, or by allowing them to traffic drugs. So if you dry up his ability to pay for his supporters, I think that could compel them to do it. And the final would be directed action against a key insider, let's say, that would probably give Maduro reason to make his own decision to leave.
Yeah, well, it appears this is an all hands on deck. Hit him from campaign. We'll stay on it. Ambassador James Story, appreciate your insights this morning. Thank you.
Vice Admiral Fozzie Miller, military attorney Daniel Conway, former Marine Raider, author of Sheepdogs, a novel. There's Elliot Ackerman. Elliot, good to see you. Thank you. Councilor Conway, I want to start with you on this. The fact that this video was put out by the Department of Justice, not by the Department of War, by Department of Defense, seems as though they're going the legal route rather than the military route to justify use of force. Was seizing this tanker an act of war, or was it legal and justified law enforcement?
Well, it appears to be that they did it by the book. They had a seizure authorization. On paper, at least, the Coast Guard was the lead agency. As I watch these videos, the Coast Guard's nowhere to be seen, as far as I can tell personally. It does seem to be largely led by U.S. military forces. But the unvarnished reality, whether you like it or not, is it looks like it was done by the book legally. That seems to disappoint you to say that. Well, I certainly have my personal beliefs on this, but objectively, if I'm looking at it through the eyes of the law, it was done legally. All right, fair enough. We appreciate that. Admiral Miller, how does this escalation ladder work? Is the president sitting there with a menu effectively that he can order off of? Okay, we fly F-18s near their airspace, we seize a tanker. What's next? What would you be looking for next in that escalation ladder?
Well, one of the military's jobs is to make sure that the president has plenty of options, because historically presidents have liked to have lots of options. So this certainly is part of the menu where you take away his ability to export oil. That oil is sanctioned under U.S. sanctions, and so you would expect that to be part of the ratcheting up of tensions. If you look at this reasonably, you curtail the drug trade. That's a source of income to the Maduro government. Obviously, illegitimate source of income. The oil trade, oil sanctioned, and so that's an illegitimate source of income as well. You take those things away, the government is less able to operate. So I think you'll continue to see these kinds of things and done as mentioned, within the confines of the law. These are U.S. sanctions violations that are being enforced. In fact, that team is led by the Coast Guard. It's a security response team that led this particular operation.
Yeah, and I think that's who is fast roping down, at least the initial boarding party. We understand there was special forces standing by, perhaps a Marine raiding party as well. Admiral, I just want to stick with you for a second here. Let's look forward. You commanded the U.S. Fifth Fleet. You've run carrier battle groups. If you were looking out and advising the Secretary of Defense, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and ultimately the President, what would be the next couple of options you would say if they called and said, Admiral Miller, we need to turn up the heat? What's the next 2 or 3 steps?
Well, there are certainly options that go onto the land. And so, the drugs that are being shipped out of Venezuela are produced somewhere. They're transported in some way. If you can find those production facilities, if you can find out where these crops are being grown, if you can find out where they're processed before they're put into shipping vessels, then that's the place where you would logically go next. Once you've largely taken away the ability to transport these drugs via the maritime environment, you start looking at the other environments, the air and the land environment as well.
Elliot Ackerman, you've been part of these kind of raiding parties. You've trained for it. This seemed sort of nothing more.
Yeah, I mean, not to diminish the complexity of these type of seizure operations, but it's something that these units train for. So, I mean, I think the facility that you're seeing there is a result of extensive preparation from that Coast Guard team. There's no resistance met on the tanker. So this is something that we have the capability to do.
Okay. The fact that somehow the woman who is I guess you could call her leader in waiting, head of the opposition, was able to escape, we're told, as chronicled by the Wall Street Journal, through 10 military checkpoints, then onto a fishing boat, then out, and then onto a waiting jet to get to Norway. That kind of tells me that the CIA already has a lot of operations going on inside Venezuela and has at least parts of the Maduro regime pretty well penetrated. Now, you're the former CIA officer. I'm the journalist. You get to tell me I'm wrong.
No, I think that's accurate, and that I would imagine is also an operation that has been on the books, for quite some time. I think what's important just to contextualize is these types of operations that we're seeing, and we're seeing that ready success. That's not necessarily what's difficult. I mean, we can go back to the Iraq War and our mission accomplished moment where we, invaded the country and took it over in a matter of months. What's difficult is what comes next. I mean, if we're talking about a drug eradication program, I fought in Afghanistan. We led a 20-year poppy program in Afghanistan. And guess what? It was a complete and total disaster and did not work. So I don't see how a comparable program in Venezuela with ground troops is going to be a huge success. So I think what I'm craving, what it seems many people are craving, to include the legislators you put at the top of the segment, is, what's the strategy here, right, and where is this going, particularly as American lives are increasingly put at risk?
Yeah. And not to underestimate, as you point out, things go wrong in those kind of boarding situations very quickly. There's two parts of this. What's the end mission? What's the strategy? And then the other side is, what is the justification? Last week, we had Congresswoman Salazar here on, who is a strong proponent of regime change in Venezuela. And she kept using the same words over and over again. We have a legal framework. We have a legal framework. As a journalist, when you hear politicians say the same thing over and over again, there is a reason. Here's a little bit of that. Take a listen.
With a narco-terrorist, we have built a pretty good, solid work around what the president is doing. Maduro is the head of Suntel, so he's a narco trafficker. He was indicted in 2020 by a federal grand jury for drug trafficking. He stole the elections in 25 after he promised the Biden administration that he was going to leave.
Counselor, the legal framework is, at best I can tell, is effectively the same that was used against Manuel Noriega, Operation Just Cause. Does that work against Maduro?
This is an issue where I think particularly the Democrats are asking a lot of questions about the specifics of the legal framework. They keep saying there's a legal framework, but it's been short on specifics there. My instinct here is probably not. This is not, in my opinion, apples to apples when we look at Noriega and Venezuela in particular. I think the size and the scope of the operation, not that our military isn't the most superior military in the world, but, to Elliot's points earlier, it's a very complex operation, and it's not the kind of thing that you're going to solve quickly.
Admiral, in terms of taking Maduro out, either killing him or proving that the president is willing to use force despite American public opinion, which I think is kind of an interesting dynamic that Maduro is playing for time in. Give us a sense from a military standpoint to do that, and whether the forces assembled so far are enough.
Well, we have the forces in place that can put a lot of pressure on the Maduro regime, and we're seeing that now. So when you stop drugs from coming out of Venezuela, you've taken away a source of income, one of the few sources of income that the Maduro government has. When you prevent them from exporting oil illegally, and they export about 900,000 barrels a day, if they can't do that legally, which they can't because of sanctions, then you put more pressure on him because he has less money. So I don't see the forces in place or move afoot in the short term to go any further in terms of affecting regime change in the pressure campaign, and that can go on for some time.
Elliot, you make a wonderful, rightly so, that you think about Afghanistan, you think about Iraq, the lives lost, the treasure spent, in large part for nothing in terms of lasting results. The Taliban is back there. Iraq is a complete disaster. The flip side of that is that there's times regime change has worked. You think about what happened in Panama. Venezuela was once a functioning country in the sense of a liberal Western country and democracy. Is there a reason to think that you couldn't do the same thing and learn from Iraq, keep the military, and basically just slide Maduro out and slide somebody else in?
Yeah, sure. I mean, anything is possible. That's why they have this term. They call it the iron dice of war. When you go to war, you are rolling two dice and you don't know where they're going to land. It is extremely unpredictable. I think ultimately what we frequently lose sight of is, we at these moments in a conflict often focus on the hardware that's in the area, the military capability, how many bombs we can drop, how many troops we can put in place. In these types of wars, the answer to the question that you're talking about, Leland, is it going to work? Is the regime change going to take? Those are political questions. And we don't necessarily know the answers to those political questions. So, were I advising the president, I would say, if you are going to go down this path, proceed with extreme caution and also understand that the political earth can shift beneath your feet rapidly, particularly when Americans start coming home in body bags.
Yeah, and particularly when you don't really know what's going to happen in Venezuela and whether or not the military and the rest of the Venezuelan civil society would get behind a new leader. Gentlemen, thoughtful, sanguine analysis and advice. We appreciate all of you. Good to see you.
New details about the moments leading up to Luigi Mangione's arrest last year, and his legal team is working now to throw out some of the key evidence against the accused CEO killer. NewsNation's Alicia Nieves outside of Manhattan Courthouse for us. So, Alicia, good morning. What are we expecting as this hearing continues into a fifth day?
Hey, good morning, Kelly. Well, we're expecting this pre-trial hearing to resume after this one-day break that it's had. And we're expecting that a judge could rule soon on what evidence will be admitted into trial, evidence like, key statements, items that police found when they actually arrested Luigi Mangione. This comes after and could come after we now have this 2-minute video of newly released body cam footage showing the first interaction that officers had with Mangione inside a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, 1 year ago this week. And you can see footage, officers asking for his name, and he responds with a fake one. Just listen.
What's your name?
Mark.
What is it?
Mark.
Mark?
Yes, sir.
Mark what?
Rosario.
Rosario? Someone called, they thought you were suspicious.
Yeah, the Altoona officer who escorted Mangione to his arraignment testified on Tuesday that when the suspect saw the media and spectators at the Pennsylvania courthouse, Mangione said, quote, "All of these people are here for a mass murderer? Wild." It's still unclear, though, if Mangione was referring to himself or if his reported comments was about the victim, United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Mangione allegedly had issues with the healthcare system. And earlier this week, the court released photos of what investigators found in Mangione's backpack, including a loaded magazine, ammo wrapped in wet underwear, a 3D printed ghost gun, and a silencer, and notes that appear to be a to-do list and possible escape plan. Mangione's lawyers are asking the judge to block his early statements, arguing that he hadn't been read his Miranda rights, so some of the evidence should be thrown out, and they say the search was warrantless and illegal. The hearing, Kelly, we understand, was expected to wrap up this week, but there's a chance that it actually could extend into next week. We did know going into this case that this was going to be a complicated one, and it appears that it's living up to that even in this pretrial hearing, Kelly.
Yeah, absolutely, Alicia. And I should say this is actually in its 6 to 7 session. So this case is in New York, but Mangione also has a legal team in Pennsylvania. What are they saying?
Yeah, that's partly because he was arrested in Pennsylvania, right? And so he's facing charges there, at least 3 charges. They include forgery, carrying a firearm without a license, and tampering with records. His Pennsylvania attorneys are basically saying that, they support the New York team, push to suppress evidence. Just listen to his attorneys there.
It's all about the how evidence was obtained, and that's what we always look at in every case, including these high-profile ones. But every case is how was the evidence obtained, and we believe that not in accordance with the law, both here and in New York.
Yeah, so his attorneys there basically saying that Mangione was in police custody before it was publicly kind of released, and that to the judge that possibly could be a factor in this case. Court's going to resume later on this morning, and we'll follow closely any developments. But a lot of people watching this one, and it certainly is proving to be a complicated, even pretrial hearing. Kelly.
You're absolutely right about that, Alicia. All right, we'll check back in. Thank you. Dave, great to have you waking up with us this morning. Thank you. So have you heard an argument, I have to ask, that would lead to any of this evidence being contested, getting thrown out of a potential trial here?
Good to be with you, Kelly. Yes, Luigi Mangione has really good lawyers, and they are making a legitimate argument that police should have gotten a warrant when they searched the remnants of the backpack at the police station. Whether that's enough to throw out such key evidence in the case, I don't think so, because there are some exceptions to the warrant requirement. Exigent circumstances that police in the past have been worried about a bomb being brought to their station. You don't know what's in the backpack of this dangerous individual, so that is an exception to a warrant. Plus, you're allowed to make a search incident to an arrest. So you're allowed to search that backpack if it's near him when he is arrested. I guess the bigger question is, can you complete the search when you're at the police station when he's no longer a threat to you? I would say that because this evidence is so important, I think the judge is going to lean towards the prosecutors here and not wipe out this case.
All right, makes sense. So by many accounts, this has been an extensive process, this pretrial hearing. How much longer do you anticipate this will continue? We've heard the judge say things like some of these stories are becoming redundant. What's your best read?
When the judge is starting to complain about redundancy, you've got to wrap up. As a prosecutor, I can't imagine this is going to go into next week. I think this week will be it. This is already one of the longest suppression hearings that I've ever seen, but it is an unusual case. It's a case that everyone is watching, so I get it, but I think that it will wrap up this week.
All right. And it's been a national spectacle, Dave. All of this playing out so publicly. His supporters have been showing up. How does this translate to a trial? Also, jury selection.
You can always get a jury, no matter how high profile the case, because it's not that you need jurors who don't know anything about a case. Hide their biases, set aside what they know, and pledge to follow the evidence and the law. It will take a little longer than a normal case to find those jurors, but you can find them. After all, we saw unbiased jurors in Donald Trump prosecutions, people who just do their civic duty to follow the evidence and the law. And even though you've got a bunch of wackos outside of the courtroom in love with this alleged murderer, I think you can find some citizens who will just do their civic duty.
Yeah, well, that is the goal and the aim, and you imagine there's a lot of vetting there. What do you anticipate we'll be hearing today?
I think today you'll hear more of the same. This is going to infuriate the judge. You'll hear about evidence compiled against Luigi Mangione, and then you'll hear the defense lawyers saying, well, it wasn't done properly. They'll question police procedures. And also, they want to throw out the statements that Luigi made before he was placed under arrest because of Miranda rules. I think there's a chance some of those statements can be thrown out. I don't think that's going to affect the prosecution. The key is getting in the gun, getting in the manifesto, that's his confession, and other stuff will be important too, but those are the two most important pieces of evidence in this case.
Well, what do you believe the likelihood is, Dave, that some of those statements do get tossed? Because that has been sort of the overarching thought from legal analysts we've been talking to, that it will be the statements, if anything, that are left out in a trial.
Yeah, I agree with those legal analysts because I think those statements are much less important. So a judge is more likely to throw those out than to throw out the gun, which you really need, and also the manifesto. So I think there's a chance. Now, you don't need necessarily to give the Miranda warnings in advance, but once it becomes a custodial interrogation, you do. Although it's important to note that Luigi Mangione never asked for a lawyer. He has this big Ivy League education. He thinks he's really smart, but he never asked for a lawyer. That would have required police to stop the interrogation, which he did not do. So that's a big contentious point here in this case.
All right. We always appreciate your analysis, Dave. Dave Ehrenberg, great to see you. Thank you.
Can a man really shoot someone in cold blood on the streets of New York City and get away with it? Well, we're talking about alleged CEO shooter Luigi Mangione. His attorneys are trying to do just that. They claim his rights were violated by police the day he was arrested in that McDonald's in Pennsylvania. They want all the evidence they collected from his backpack thrown out, the gun, the ammunition, his notebook, on the grounds that the police didn't obtain a search warrant. Well, now you have new body cam video of that arrest. It's just been released. We're going to show it to you in a minute, but first, it's important to understand the timeline here, okay? So on December 9th, 2024, at 9:14 a.m., the manager at McDonald's called 911 saying that customers thought a man eating there looked like the CEO shooter. 9:29 a.m., Altoona police arrived at the McDonald's. 9:41 a.m., Mangione's fake license was shown to the police. 9:58 a.m., he's arrested on forgery related to a fake ID. And as soon as he was arrested, a cop started searching his backpack and continued searching it once they got to the station. Now that you've seen the timeline, we've got to take a look at the body cam footage of when police first confronted Mangione. Take a look.
Yes, sir. There you go. Can you put your mask down for me? Yeah, sure. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. What's your name? Mark. What is it? Mark. Mark? Yes, sir. Mark what? Sorry. Sorry? Someone called tonight. They thought you were suspicious. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have your ID on you? Yes, sir. Thanks. Thought she looked like someone, guilty to even run the camera. Where are you from? Player 6, 2729 out of New Jersey.
Does that video help or hurt the defense? I want to bring in New York City's top cop during the hunt for Mangione, retired NYPD Chief of Department John Chell, and criminal defense attorney Mark Garagos. Thank you so much for coming on. John, I'll start with you. A, where does that video fit into the piece of the puzzle? And B, did police do anything wrong whereby his statements to the police or any of his belongings will not be allowed into evidence?
All right. As far as his statements go, by the officer's own admission, he said as soon as he took his mask down, he knew it was him. I think he had a probable cause right there to make that arrest. Not to mention the fact that the partner's running the ID, and it's also a fake for probable cause to arrest. Anything questioning beyond that has to stop. You cannot ask any more questions. Custody questioning equals Miranda. Now, as far as the bag goes, they made a tactical error here. At this point, when they first walk in, that reasonable suspicion, they could pat that bag down. But since they're a probable cause and he had immediate control over that bag, they should have did that bag right there for no reason their safety. And the officer says, I knew that gun was recovered. But now you have search incidental lawful arrest. And you also have an inventory back at the precinct. So I think Judge Carroll, somewhere along the line, is going to throw out some statements. But he'll go with an inevitable discovery here that the gun would have been discovered during a normal course anyway.
Let's talk about that. So, Mark, right, that would be, well, listen, he wasn't in a custodial interrogation. He was free to leave. He's eating his chicken nuggets, gives a fake ID. tells him a fake name. Okay, now you're talking about a crime being committed. And plus, you couple that with the idea of what his clothing is, he's suspicious. And then the bag, right, would be searched incidental to arrest. They might have thought that there was a threat. They're under the law. They can do an inventory search of a suspect. And like John just said, there is this concept in the law, inevitable discovery doctrine. They would have been able to get that evidence anyway. A judge might forgive it in a way. Your response?
That the interesting thing about this case is you've got parallel prosecutions, both federal and state, and the law on the searches differ federally in New York State. I'm not so sure that the inevitable discovery at that point, based on this body cam and based on the other numerous witnesses that they've shown, is going to carry the day. I do agree on the statements and where I think prognosticating where the judge is going to come out. I'm not so sure on the search. And by the way, in cases like this, I wouldn't bet on a search press under almost any circumstances in this high profile of a case. But for the very reason I said, knowing you've got a backstop of the feds and a different standard for the inevitable discovery, I think this judge, he may, and it's slim, I wouldn't bet on it, but he may say that the search was illegal.
So I guess the question is, John, why didn't they get a search warrant? There was the discussion, right, about do we need one, do we not need one? Why didn't they get a search warrant, and why didn't they read him his Miranda rights immediately?
Well, the Miranda rights, I think their intent, even though intent has nothing to do with it, I think they were just trying to make small talk because he was working with a rookie. I think he was waiting for the troops to arrive. But that doesn't mitigate Miranda. He had probable cause, no more questions, talk about the weather, talk about the burger he's eating, leave it at there. Again, as far as the gun goes, I'm a firm believer that the search was contemporaneously in the parking lot. I'm not putting, in my experience, I'm not putting a bag in the car without taking a quick peek to see what's in it for my own safety, and then inventory back at the precinct. But I will tell you this: I've handled many murder cases as a chief of detectives in Brooklyn, and I wish there was a detective that could kind of take custody of that and say, let's be safe and let's get the search warrant. You would have the same result.
Mark, real quick, 20 seconds. If this all gets tossed, let's say everything gets tossed, can they still prosecute him successfully?
On the state side, it's an uphill battle. But remember, you've got the feds standing right behind you, and they've been doing a tug of war to see who goes anyway. Nothing would make the feds happier than for them to step in. And I agree, the detective is absolutely right. You know, given the circumstances, when you look at the videos, the better part of valor here would have been to just wait. There was no reason not to.
And to be clear, whatever decision is made in the state level doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate over to the federal level, but you have to imagine it'll have some sort of effect.
And Jesse, don't forget, Jesse, they followed him from the scene to the Starbucks.
No, I hear you.
DNA off that water. So there's other things.
We could always talk about everything else. All right, Mark Garagos, John Chell, appreciate it. Thank you.
More headlines we're following closely this morning, including Nick, Charlie Kirk's accused killer. He's in court today.
That's right. Kelly, good morning to you and good morning to everyone at home. Tyler Robinson is his name, and he will stand in front of a judge for the first time today since he was charged with the murder of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Robinson has only appeared virtually for hearings up until this point. The judge is weighing how much access the public and media will have to the trial. Right now, Robinson cannot be photographed in shackles, and both sides have pushed to ban cameras in the courtroom. Prosecutors say the death penalty will be on the table if Robinson is convicted of timber shooting. Hundreds of acres of land along the California-Mexico border will soon be handed over to the United States Navy. The Trump administration announcing plans for a new militarized zone extending from just outside San Diego to the Arizona line. These zones have already been put in place in Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. Now, the administration says these zones empower troops to arrest people for trespassing on military bases as part of the crackdown on illegal immigration. And President Trump's $1 million path to U.S. citizenship is now available. The website to apply for a gold card visa is now live. For $1 million, the gold card offers expedited legal residency in the United States with an opportunity to become a citizen. The president says billions of dollars will flow into the government from those with deep pockets from this program, and it will bring the best of the best to the United States. This morning, some residents in western Washington state are being warned to go. Do not wait. Historic and catastrophic flooding is hitting Washington and Oregon. Roads in the Pacific Northwest have washed out, and there have been landslides and severe water rescues, several of them. Washington's governor says some rivers are expected to reach the most severe flood stage level, and the heavy rains are expected through tomorrow. And check out this dramatic video showing the moment a skydiver's parachute snagged on the wing of the plane. He accidentally opened his parachute while getting ready to jump for a group jump. Now, Australia's Transportation Safety Bureau just released this video. The man is okay. He cut himself free at 15,000 feet and free fell until he could open his backup chute. Another parachutist also tumbled from the plane when the pilot boosted power, thinking the engine had stalled. Now, luckily, Kelly, in all of this, no one was hurt, but that is definitely like a scene out of Final Destination or something.
I'll say, and I like how other people are just jumping out, looking at him, going, well, he'll figure it out. He must be, he's cool under pressure, you would imagine. All right, Nick. Wow, thank you. Well, some really big names have just been tapped to co-chair next year's Met Gala. NewsNation senior story editor Paula Froelich, she is here with the scoop. Paula, good morning to you. So who is set to be by Anna Wintour's side come May? This is exciting.
It's a big deal. So we've got Beyonce, which everyone loves. Beyonce always comes. She always brings it. You've got Nicole Kidman and you've got Venus Williams. Now, this is Venus's first time hosting. The other girls, they've done it before. But what's also interesting is the actual host committee. So the host committee, it's also got Chloe Moll, who is Anna Wintour's editorial person at Vogue now. But they've also got people like Zoe Kravitz, Sabrina Carpenter, and Doja Cat. So it's going to be kind of a big deal. And everyone's going to bring it because the theme is costume art.
Ooh.
So it's going to get weird and wonderful.
I think that is a very valid prediction, Paula.
Oh, yeah.
Also, some new developments. I want to ask you about this. Former talk show host Wendy Williams and this court-ordered guardianship she's been under for 3 years. This has gotten very bizarre. What's the latest in this saga?
All right, so people who watch us know that at this point, Wendy got independent confirmation that she does not indeed have frontal temporal dementia. So what the heck is she doing in a conservatorship? We know that she's got a problem with alcohol. She has been clean. She's been seen out twice this week because it was her niece Alex Finney's birthday, so she took her out. Alex is one of the 2 people she's allowed to actually see in her facility. And meanwhile, her lawyer, Joe Tacopina, is telling TMZ that she's going to be out of the conservancy by the end of the year. So by my accounts, that's 2.5 weeks.
Wow. Well, she looks great. Wishing her the best. It's been quite an episode and very weird.
It's insane, Kel.
Yeah.
I mean, why is she even there?
Right. So many asking that question. Exactly. All right, Paula, the scoop with the NewsNation senior story editor, Paula Froelich. It's always a pleasure. Thanks, my friend.
Dude, thanks, Kelly.
Okay, Merv, I have something to tell you. Me and Russ broke up.
Oh, I love you, bud.
Merv, are you okay? Dogs are very sensitive to anything that throws their routine, like a breakup.
You think Merv is depressed because we broke up?
Well, there is nothing more complicated than a breakup, right? Except when you add a furry friend into the mix. And that is exactly what happened in the new holiday rom-com Merv, when a beloved dog gets a serious case of the blues after his owner split. And those owners are played by actors Zooey Deschanel and Charlie Cox, who join us now with more. Good morning. We're so excited to have you here. Thanks for making the time.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Yes.
So I think it's safe to say there's never been a dog-centric movie quite like this one. It's also, though, very realistic. So, Zoe, can you tell us more about how your character there, Anna, is forced into this awkward co-parenting arrangement?
Yeah, so they're a couple, they break up, they have to share a dog who they both love very much, but, you know, maybe have different ideas of how to, you know, dog parent him. And he's a little depressed. And so they end up having to take him on a beach vacation, or rather...
Yeah, I was going to say.
Russ takes him on a beach vacation. Anna is worried he's still depressed and that what he really wants is for them to...
gate crashes it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, she comes and barges into the vacation, and it some hilarity does ensue.
All right. Well, Charlie, I have to say, you sell this character, but this is a huge change of pace compared to Daredevil. So what was it like to play this role? And also, what made you want to take on Russ as a character?
Yeah, it was really fun, and as you say, very different. You know, it was shocking to me at the end of each day that I wasn't getting home and feeling kind of angry all the time, so that was nice. Yeah, you know, Ross is kind of, you know, kind of very a sweet guy, maybe you know, a little bit hapless. He's very depressed at the beginning of the movie. Because of, you know, the loss of this relationship, and his living situation isn't great. But I think, you know, means well and sees a future for, you know, him and Anna that he's, you know, lost the fight for.
So I have to ask you about Gus, who's with you there. What a good sport he is. Played Merv in the movie. How did he get cast? Was he a good co-star? He seems to be.
He's a good boy. Yeah. He's a very good boy.
I mean, look how brilliant he is in this interview.
He's literally...
He is.
Just
he has been told to sit, and that is what he's doing.
Yeah, he's super focused.
He's very professional. He's the most professional actor we've ever worked with.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Well, Zoe, I have to ask you, I'd be remiss if I didn't about Elf. It's been 22 years since its release. Many loved seeing your character in this movie. Would you ever be interested in a reboot? This is a time when so many folks are tuning in. They're rewatching it again and again.
Yeah, I would do it. I don't know if the other people involved would do it, but, you know. Not up to me, but if they tell me to show up somewhere, I'll be there.
All right. I like it. And, you know, we know we're getting a second season of Daredevil. Born Again, have you started filming? What's been the latest there, Charlie?
We have not started shooting the third season yet. We have a new season coming out in March, I believe, and then we're going to start shooting a third season around about that same time. So lots more on the Daredevil front.
Well, it's great to see you guys both in person and to, you know, really witness all the chemistry that comes through in this movie. Zoe, Charlie, we appreciate your time. Happy holidays. And you can stream Merv now on Prime Video. A great watch. You won't want to miss it.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Thank you so much. Happy holidays.